Okay, so boom. So right now, a lot of people just can't save. I have referenced the great Beyonce is saying that America has a problem. We really freaking do. Some people are saying, "Oh, we should wait to call a recession that's coming." I'm sorry, that heifer is here. And one of the things that I have been noticing through, researching articles and seeing the news and headlines of layoffs and things is going back to the fact that Americans can't save right now. And over on TT, I stitched this video where a lady was saying that I have an emergency fund, but I broke the case for the emergency fund because it was an emergency. And I think a lot of people are finding themselves doing that, having to break the sinking fund that they have designated for emergencies. But the thing that a lot of people don't really get is that emergencies look different. And I talked about having a contingency plan based upon knowing that you can have various levels of emergency beyond if I was to happenstance lose my job or my hours were cut, or I had a car issue, or I couldn't pay rent. Emergencies look different. And one of the things that happens is that we're noticing the inflation going up while wages are staying the same. Look at my illustration. It's really making people see, like, in different stances that they can't save like they would like to. Heck, even before all this stuff popped off, people were not able to save in the level and rate and retentionary amounts that they really needed to, even before this pandemic hit off. When you see this, the whole thing with, I don't know if it's like a fire, like if you're trying to put out water or something or whatever, and it's a breaking case of emergency, a lot of people have broken their emergency funds due to the fact that it's indeed an emergency right now in their livelihoods. And a lot of people have been wondering, how can I actually combat inflation with living my life, using my emergency fund, and still trying to hammer out what we're going through, this thing called life, like Prince would say. And a lot of people are finding themselves having to break that case of their emergency fund in case of emergency, but then feeling bad because they actually had to do it. One of the things I want to give into your head before I go through some things is that if you find yourself having a different kind of emergency that you not even anticipated, that it is okay. It is okay for you to have to use the emergency fund when emergency actually does find you. And I at the beginning of me talking about personal finance, whichever, I stopped in a sense saying emergency funds, but I started using the context of them being opportunity funds. The reason why is because we have those actual savings funds or sinking funds for emergencies, but it's an opportunity for you to give yourself a life vest during when is going off. A lot of people found back in the '08 recession that they didn't have a freaking life vest, and people went out buying homes, but still was finding that they couldn't even maintain the homes due to all kind of things that went on then. But the thing that I want to go back into is that we're finding people combating inflation, trying to live their lives, having to build an emergency fund the best that they can, but still having to break that glass case of their emergency fund to actually fund the emergency. Do not feel bad if you're finding yourself having to break that glass in case of emergency. That's what they're there for. You're finding yourself having to break the glass in case of emergency. I want you to look to see, how much did you actually have saved? How often were you actually automating and stacking towards it? And then how much of it did you actually use? If you use a good hunk of it all, it's okay. But I want you to determine your rate of return. Get you understand what I'm going here. The rate of the return of how long is it going to take you to replenish what you have to return it back to the state of peakness that you have within saving. Your rate of return when it comes to your emergency savings or any type of savings account is that if I do hit this goal, or if I do this, what's going to be my rate of return of getting back to that level that I wanted to, and that goal that I wanted to knock out. That's your rate of return. And a lot of times people feel that, oh, if I take from my sinking fund or my emergency fund, you had the opportunity to keep yourself afloat during opposition. That's an emergency. Um, the rate of opposition, yes, it's an emergency, but the reason that I'm calling it an opportunity fund is the fact that you had the opportunity to save yourself when the ship was sinking. That's why I'm calling it an opportunity fund. Think about different instances that we've seen in history or anything that people didn't have and didn't have even a life vest to save themselves, let alone knew how to build to blow up the life vest or use it whenever they had it, that they needed it. So the thing I want you to keep in mind when it comes to emergency funds is that if you have to use that emergency fund, it's oh freaking K. But I want you to determine what's going to be your rate of return to hit that level. And even if so, you determine what that rate of return is going to be, what were you even hitting what you would need for that emergency, the designated emergency fund? Say for instance, you know how much your bills cost a month, and that's the fixed and the variable. Then you determine how many months would I like to save for. Would it be 3? Would it be 6? Would it be 9? Would it be 12? Even 24? Then you need to determine how long it's going to take me to actually get to that designated number. I'm telling you how to actually build an emergency fund. Whenever you do determine how long is it going to take, then how much of it within the budget that you have can you actually save towards that rate of automating it into a savings account, and then determining is this feasible, is it going to work? Say for instance, if you have your bills cost 2,000, I'm hypothetically speaking, $2,000 a month, but you want to have 3 months saved, that 2, 4, 6, that's $6,000. Then when is the goal? When do you want to actually have that amount saved? That is something that you need to keep in mind. Whenever you determine when you want to have that amount saved, that's your baseline. You're working your way backwards. When I tell people about creating these financial goals, you have to understand what's the goal, what's the deadline, and then work backwards to determine, is it going to be any hiccups? What's going to be a holdup? If you're saving aggressively during high peak holiday months, are you still going to be able to do things at the rate that you were doing it? So working your way backwards will allow you to determine how things are working. But if going back to the whole $6,000, if you want to have $6,000 saved by let's just say October, work your way backwards, breaking that up into how often do you get paid, and then looking at your budget to determine how much out of your paycheck can you save monthly every 2 weeks towards to hit that goal. But the thing when it comes to understanding uh, your sinking fund, your emergency fund, opportunity fund, that you determine what that looks like, and then build a contingency plan to say, in case of freaking emergency, what would you do? Like Keanu Reeves say, what would you do if I have this $6,000 saved? I got it. It's in a high yield savings account CD, and I have this saved. So in case of emergency, this is how I'm going to change to replenish that emergency fund, opportunity fund, any type of fund back to its rate of the what's the rate into getting it back to above sea level. So if I know I had $6,000, I get laid off, and I'm calculating that with my severance that I'm going to have this much severance. Lucky you have it. If you do not, you do not. Then if you, I'm just speaking from experience. Then in the on, you might not need to tap into the opportunity fund as much as you anticipated, and you can actually keep it there until their severance, unemployment, or whatever taps out. It's fine. I understand. But the thing I want people to understand is when you have an opportunity fund, emergency fund, depending on what it's being used for, is it to keep your bills afloat? Did your car start acting up after you finish paying it off? Or whatever be that you determined from that emergency fund that you designated, If something was to happen and I had to actually utilize it, here's how I'm going to be able to replenish it. So if I use 2,000 of the $6,000, when am I going to tap into being able to replenish it, and how long is it going to take me at the current rate of my life right now? Because I've seen news of people having to they're opening credit cards to keep afloat, probably because maybe they didn't have an emergency fund, maybe it wasn't as funded as they wanted it to be, or whatever. But the thing that I'm noticing again is that we're seeing people, the rate of credit cards being open right now is astronomical. And if you're not keeping up what the Federal Reserve is doing with interest rate hikes, anything, the rate, the APR that you would have seen previously when it comes to credit cards, depending on your credit score and other things such as debt to income ratio, whatever, your rate is probably going to be a little bit higher. So they're not only tapping into opening new credit cards, they're also tapping into their 401k, doing an early withdrawal. And if you're under 59 and a half, you're getting tapped with that penalty and taxes, depending on the type of account. But even something that I have talked about on a podcast, this is the podcast previously, is that people are even tapping into their life insurance policy, because if depending on the policy type, you can get a cash loan or you can cash pull from that policy. Because right now, it's people are doing what they have to do to survive, and I don't blame them. I don't judge. I just give you the journey for you to actually determine which will be the better route for you. And if you are finding yourself to be one of those that have had to break the case, the emergency opportunity fund, you had to break that case because it wasn't a freaking emergency. What do you do to actually determine your rate of return, determine what you can do to actually get back? First, I want you to give yourself grace. It's okay. That's the point of you having an emergency, like I talked about, is that for you to have that life vest to be able to help yourself get back to sea level and keep going and building your muscle and your money back. Then I want you to assess where you are when it comes to your finances. You know, I talked about in a previous video, audit your wallet, knowing what's going on, what's coming in, what's going out, to determine for you to rebuild your emergency fund. That you have to fully understand where you are financially to determine the best means and methods to get back to that rate of return that we talked about. Then go back to looking to see, this is how much I actually use. This is how long, what my current status is when it comes to my finances, and then this is what I can actually contribute towards that type of account to rebuild back to that to sea level. So determine how much you want to save and by what date, like I called out previously. That will give you a target, not my the trap, but it will give you a target on how to actually build that repayment plan back to yourself. Then people are going to tell you to cut different um, expenses and stuff like that. Look at your expenses to know. All right, so boom. If I usually go get my nails done every so often, do I need to cut back? Do I need to change my services? I'm not going to necessarily tell you to cut everything out so you have nothing. I want you to see, is there another cost effective way for you to actually live the life that you want to live? And then as you get back to your you know, started with your goal, that you're actually moving and shaking and say, okay, maybe I can't buy, go to Sephora and buy out the store, or maybe I can't go to Target and buy out. I have that you can't do that yet. Do what you can do until you can do what you want to do. So you either eliminate things that you're seeing as like a call, like a ick to your budget, into your replenishing of your emergency fund, but also look into ways that you can actually swap out to actually do the self care or self structure of your budget and your livelihood to make it even better. So if I want to not get the expensive car wash, I want to get the cheaper car wash, and my car is clean. Oh heck, I want to actually wash the car because it's gonna allow me to burn off some calories. So look for ways to either cut or reduce, or to say maybe I need to cut out having Tidal, having Apple pay, but I can go get on my family plan, which technically I have done. So all of us are paying a rate for us to have it, but it's cheaper than me just each of us having our own plan. You understand? So the next one we took automated. When you determine what that rate is going to look like for you to actually replenish your emergency fund, go ahead, go in your budget, whether it's $5, 500, 50, whatever that you can do, that you can commit and convert every week, every month, every whatever, so you can get that emergency fund back to stature, that you're going ahead and automate that. The reason why automation is so key is because, just like everybody's talking about uh chat GPT, that it's that you, when you're automating, you can set it and forget it. You don't gotta worry about, Lord, did I transfer the money over? Oh shoot, did I put it into the right one? It's automated, so you don't have to worry about that. That setting up your, from your checking or designated account into that emergency fund is going to be key, because you're going to be able to track and say, hey, I'm doing this and doing that. And interestingly enough, I posted about how my APY on one of my high yield savings accounts is technically knocking at 5. I said 4, it was knocking at 5 right now. So you're able to look at your automation. You're not having to touch it to actually make sure it's going. You're able to look and say, okay, I'm saving this towards that goal. Don't only check your money when you're checking out at the swipe button, or when you're getting the check in. Doing money meetings with yourself, your honey, your family, whatever, will allow you to see, how am I putting myself towards that rate of return when it comes to returning the money back into my emergency fund that I had to tap into. And I mean, even if you're noticing, okay, I'm not hitting it where I need to be, or I'm noticing this company is doing a layoff, child, it's a layoff every other day, and I hate it. I hate it. It's triggering. But to say, okay, I need to be moving myself up towards this goal. And I'm gonna tell you this. Granted, I'm getting ready to start talking about the recession more. It's, you can do all the steps that you need to do, or see all the articles that you need to see. No one is going to be completely up to par, but putting yourself in a position to know how to pivot in case we do see that recession collectively, or uh, singularly, meaning our own personal one, that you are on point to handle whatever you're coming into, to see a recession. So it is important. And one of the things that is important to do is, with when understanding, okay, I'm working, but the income is not matching, but I need to go ahead and hit this emergency fund back up, is that you have to look for other means for income. Passive aggressive, no matter what you want to call it, having an understanding on what other ways to get income is going to be key for you to replace that money that went into your emergency fund. And then prioritizing. Right now, you might want to, if you were saving for a house, saving for a car, go ahead and looking to see what the rates are right now, how you align, and determining what's going to be your prioritization of your paper. Is your emergency fund at the top, or maybe it's saving for, to go ahead and pay that car off. Determine the prioritization of your paper is going to be key, especially going to what we're going into right now as a collective economy. And then stay committed. When you find that if you did not do any automation, it's fine, but do stay committed to yourself, into your currency, means stay committed. So that's a goal that I have. Am I going to work my way backwards to notice that, hey, it's coming in during the automation, is coming during the time, it's my birthday, it's this and that, and I want to be able to do this and that. How are you going to shift the prioritization when it comes to determining your goals and meeting them? That's one of the things that is key when it comes to building your rate of return, to making sure your emergency goes back up to where you need it to go. And then, heck, you're not hitting, if you, before the emergency, you weren't hitting that goal that you had for your gains, in that emergency fund, opportunity fund, looking to go and reverse engineering. I love to say that, to see, okay, why wasn't I hitting it as close as I need to? I had the money there, but why wasn't I hitting it? And then how can I actually make this better for me, going back to returning the money, and then also hitting that goal that I initially had? It's about taking ownership of where you are with your finances. I love to call you the chief fund operator of officer of your bank account as well as your generational wealth. But it goes back into taking accountability, aligning yourself, seeing where you need to do better, what tools or what tricks that you utilize that didn't go well, that can make you actually excel when it comes to your goals. So if you find yourself having to tap into that emergency fund, having to break the glass to save yourself and your, that it's okay. It is okay. Get your mind settled, give yourself grace, but also give yourself the guide to see where am I at currently financially? How can I get back to that goal? Then, if there's anything that can help me, automation, a different type of savings account. So, I made a post recently about the difference between a high yield savings account and CD versus a regular savings account. If you've been following me on any platform for a while, you know I love selling the regular savings account. I called it when I was working for a financial institution. It's kind of a play off of Cardi, but the regular savings account have 0.01%, or if any, depending on the financial institution, that's what a regular savings account is. High yield savings accounts, the APY of it all, is the annual percentage yield, which is meaning for however much you put into their account, they're going to be paying you interest back. The more you save and attack your savings goals, the more you get paid by that financial institution. And I referenced that the APR of credit cards, you want that low, but the APY when it comes to saving for in a CD high yield savings account, you want that higher. And the reason why is because you're getting paid more. And when you determine, okay, maybe me saving into this regular savings account was giving me the accessibility, but the accumulation that I'm looking for is going to be in a high yield savings account. It's going to be in a CD. But when you determine along the way, you know, I love talking about financial objectives, is saying, okay, my objective for saving for emergency opportunity fund is to keep myself afloat for about 3 to 6 months. Here's the account that actually works best, and then here's the method that I'm going to actually have it to match my goal. So it's about figuring out the reason why I say accessibility and not accessibility for a regular savings account and not accessibility when it comes to a CD or a high yield savings account. It's based upon the fact it takes roughly 5 days or less for a high yield savings account to the amount to transfer to your checking account. And with a CD, you have to stay locked and loaded in that CD for that designated maturity time. So one, it's good to have a regular savings account for, say for instance, you got a repair you need to do on your car, on a house or something. You have that money then, you don't have to worry about it. But if you're looking to scale your emergency fund quicker with the rate of return of the higher APY, look into a high yield savings account. Just saying. So it's you find yourself having to tap into that emergency fund. Don't feel bad. Find the methods that we talked about previously to determine your rate of returning that emergency opportunity fund back to its highest self, and go ahead about your life. And the other thing is, if you are saving or starting to stack for your emergency fund, don't allow the headlines to not let you make headway into building the emergency fund, building the contingency plan to get prepared on just in case of emergency happening. What we're seeing with this recession is it's going to be part group project, and we know how some of these group projects can go, and it's going to be part what you put into your own personal situation. And we're not seeing a recession as a bad thing. We're seeing it as a way for us to reset our finances, reset our lives, so we can actually see that you can make, not if it's millions, good, we want it, we claiming that, but are you making a means to actually build better means during whatever we're going to see when it comes to this economy? If it's a downturn, is it whatever? I talked about this in my recent email about the sentiment of 2008 versus the situations that we are seeing right now when it comes to SVB Bank and other in the economy being kind of on par with what we saw in the 1970s and 80s with that economy. So no matter what we see as an economy, you don't harper on the fact, oh, it's like 2008, oh, it's like the Great Depression. This is different. Every recession is different, but you get cliff notes from previous ones on how to actually play the game differently in what we move into. So no matter if they declare it or you actually experience a recession, tap it into your means to get emergency income, rather it's an emergency opportunity fund, or rather it's through through credit cards, child, or other means that we talked about that I talked about previously, the withdrawal for your 401k, the loan or cash pool from your life insurance policy, that you determine if it's a good method, what's the rate of returning that back to sea level, and then how it can I move beyond that. So if you have to tap in your emergency fund, it is okay. But the reason why I want to make this video is to give people insight on, if you do tap into it, here's how to regroup it back to having the money that you need to survive anything that you may find yourself facing in the future. That's it.